Hello everyone, this is the 5th Epical Revelation Fellowship. I'm Reverend Dr. Roger Paul. Tonight is the 5th of August 2015 and we're going to study paper 47, the 7 Mansion Worlds. And that starts on page 530, paragraph 1, or paper 4701. So let's say a little prayer and we'll get started. I'll pray tonight. Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight, and thank you for revealing this wonderful paper to us that we might learn of our pathway to you. We thank you for this knowledge, and we thank you for friends to share it with, and pray that you'll open our hearts and our minds that we might learn it and remember it and share it with others. We thank you and we give you the praise in your Son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen. Okay. Diane, do you want to start reading?
Okay. Paper 47, the 7 Mansion Worlds. The Creator's Son, when on Urantia, spoke of the many mansions in the Father's universe. In a certain sense, all 56 of the encircling worlds of Jerusalem are devoted to the transitional culture of ascending mortals. But the 7 satellites of world number 1 are more specifically known as the Mansion Worlds.
Okay. So you remember there's a quote Jesus made that in my Father's house there are many mansions, and this is what he was talking about, among other things. They say all 56. Now what are we talking about? We're talking about the 7 satellites that surround Jerusalem and the 7 satellites that surround each one of these satellites. So that makes the 56 worlds that surround Jerusalem. Okay?
That's more than many.
That's more than many. And
that's a lot.
That's a lot. And all of these worlds are devoted to the transition culture of the ascending mortals. Now, what are they talking about the transition culture? What they're talking about is getting us up to par as spiritual beings and trying to remove the mark of the beast or the bestiality of us coming from a world in rebellion. Okay? But then he goes on to say that the 7 satellites surrounding world number 1, which is the world of the Finaliters, is specifically known as the Mansion Worlds. And this is what world number 1, the Finaliter world, and the 7 Mansion Worlds that surround it. Okay? Now, there's Jerusalem. Remember, there's 7 more of these worlds about this size that surround this too, and there's 7 each that's more worlds that surround each one of these satellites. Okay? And this particular slide tells us when we get to World Mansion World number 1, we automatically get clearance to the Finaliter world. Now, will we be able to see the Finaliters when we go there? No, of course not. They're high spiritual beings. But the energy transformers visualize these beings to us several times a year, so we're able to see them then. Okay, and we're going to talk about that in a slide later on tonight.
So, hey Roger, I just had a question.
Yeah.
So the 56 encircling worlds of Jerusalem, 7 of those worlds are going to be a part of Jerusalem?
7 of those?
56?
Yeah, 7 of them are the satellites of Jerusalem.
But they're in that cluster of 56.
They're in that cluster of 56. But 7 more surround each one of those satellites. Okay, so it's 7 times 7. I mean,
Correct.
Yeah, 7 times 7, right?
So it would be like a planet, like in the middle, and then 7 little satellites around that planet.
Yeah, and then 7 more satellites around that satellite, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And the Mansion Worlds are the ones that surround the very first world, which is the Finaliter world. Okay? Now, what's the Finaliter world? The Finaliter world serves as a living place for beings that's gone all the way to paradise and come back. But what else does it serve as? It also serves as the nursery for children that die before they fuse with their, or before they get their adjusters, and before they make a decision, an age of decision. And we're going to talk about that more too.
Oh, hey Roger.
Yeah.
If we were to look at a picture of Jerusalem, we would kind of get the ideal too, correct?
Yes.
If we had like in the Encyclopedia Urantia, we would have an ideal.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and there's also, we've seen that same picture. We may have it in these slides, but we saw it last time, I think it was, in the last paper, so you can look at it for it there too. Okay.
Just what we see here, the butterscotch colors, there's 7 of those surrounding Jerusalem.
Yeah, 7 of these worlds this size are the larger ones surrounding Jerusalem, and then 7.
Each one of those has 7 satellites.
Each one of those has 7 satellites.
That's the 56.
That's the 56. That's right, including Jerusalem. All right. Go on. Let's see. Millie, would you take the next one?
Me? Okay, I keep turning my speaker off. You don't want to hear my ice clinking and my sneezing and all that. Transition World number 1 itself is quite exclusively devoted to ascendant activities, being the headquarters of the Finaliter Corps assigned to Centennium. This world now serves as the headquarters for more than 100,000 companies of Finaliters, and there are more than 1,000 glorified beings in each of these groups.
Okay, so there's 100,000 companies times 1,000, right? Because there's 1,000 glorified beings in each one of these companies. So that's a lot of finaliters on this mansion world, right?
100,000?
No, 100,000 companies of finaliters, and each company has 1,000 beings.
100,000.
Yeah, 100,000. That's right. So if you take 100,000 and multiply it by 1,000, that's how many beings there are, right? Which
Well,
is
that's a lot of zeros. I think
It's a
that's 10 million.
something like that. Yeah. So it's quite a few finaliters on that world.
I can't imagine going to a place that has that many beings.
Yeah.
The presence of that many. As I've read this, there are so many beings there.
Yeah, there are, and on top of that, Millie, think of it. It says the world number 1 itself is quite exclusively. They use exclusively there devoted to ascendant activities. So the whole world is busy with ascendant activities going on, including taking care of the nursery and that sort of thing. So
Hey, Roger,
yeah,
I'll be lost.
yeah, Tim.
I can definitely give you a description of Mansion World number 1 on our first day, what we're going to be doing,
What's that? What's that?
if you want to hear it.
Yeah,
I don't want
sure.
to take your time away.
No, go
Okay,
right ahead.
1,
That's what
Mansion
we're-
World number 1. A, first day, number 1, Awakening and Resurrection Hall, 2 Guardian Seraphim, and Morancha Companion, Morancha Body, Ascendants,
Mhm.
and it gives you the page, description, but that's okay.
Right.
Description of Resurrection Hall, 2, People You See First, Andon Infanta, 3, Melchizedek Sector, Registry Hall, Physical Mechanisms, Residents, and, of course, their second day, and there's 10 days.
That it described. Give the page number for that, Tim, so the people at home will be able to look it up.
Okay, Awakening and Resurrection Halls will be page 1234 and 1235.
Yeah.
2 Guardian Seraphim and Morancha Companion, page 546. Morancha Body, Accidents, page 574. Description of Resurrection Hall, page 533. People You See First, Andon Infanta, page 717. Melchizedek Sector, page 533. Registry Hall, Physical Mechanisms, page 521. Residents, page 547. And we'll move on to the second day a little later.
Yeah.
But it's the first day through 10 days on Mansion World number 1.
All right.
And I
Thanks.
have page numbers.
All right,
So if
thanks.
you want them, just tell me.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. That's great.
And the reason for 10 days is because if you've accomplished what you need,
Then you move on to.
then you move on in 10 days.
That's right.
And then when you get to Mansion World 2, if you've accomplished what you need there, you move on in 10 days until you get to a world that is going to offer you something you don't already have.
The other thing about this paper that is not mentioned in this paper is that when you awaken on the mansion worlds, your friends and relatives have been notified that you are scheduled to arrive. So when you awaken, all your friends and family are there to greet you. Isn't that interesting? So,
Hey, Roger, what kind of ascended activities are we going to be doing on the Mansion Worlds? Or it could be in the second day.
Well, most of it has to do with group activities that help us remove our animal tendencies. That's apparently what we're going to be doing. So,
52 push-ups,
52.
7 cartwheels.
That's right. Tim, would you take the next paragraph, please?
Transition World number 1 itself is quite exclusively devoted to ascended activities, being the headquarters of the Finaliter Corps, assigned to Satania. This world now serves as the headquarters for more than 100,000 companies of Finaliters.
Okay, read the next paragraph. That's the one that Millie just read.
Okay, start with, when a system is settled in light and life, and as the mansion worlds one by one cease to serve as mortal training stations, they are taken over by the unceasing Finaliter population, which accumulates in these older and more highly perfected systems.
So, and all of them, all the systems have something that's similar to a Mansion world, but as the system gets closer and closer to being settled in light and life, the use of the Mansion world ceases to exist, right? Because as more and more planets get to light and life, then mortals coming from those planets are on a higher plane than we are. Okay, so it's not necessary for them to go through all 7 other Mansion worlds. So as these Mansion worlds phase out because of this increase in light and life, then they're taken over by even more Finaliters that are returning from paradise. Isn't that kind of neat? So these Mansion worlds are repurposed as their usefulness ceases, right?
So once all the people from Urantia pretty much died and are resurrected and there's no more people on the earth, when it becomes established in light and life, there's no use for the Mansion worlds, Roger? That's what you're saying?
Not just Urantia, but all 1,000 planets in our local system of Satania. So all 1,000 of those planets will have to reach light and life before that would happen. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But that is exactly right. It will cease its usefulness, so they will convert it to a world for the returning Finaliters from paradise. So eventually, all the Mansion worlds will be filled up with Finaliters, which is kind of neat.
So Roger,
Yeah.
one day, way off in the future, there will be no ascending mortal.
There will be no ascending mortals on the Mansion worlds, right? That's right. But these ascending mortals will be coming from all 7, excuse me, of the super universes, right? They'll also be coming from all the local universes. So that's not going to happen for a long time. Now, when all the mortals in our current 7 super universes and our local universe ascend to paradise, what have we reached? We have reached the 7th stage. That's when the Supreme Being will come in full fruition, right? So it will happen eventually, but it's going to be a way long off occurrence, right?
And then the ascenders will be coming from the outer space belt.
That's right. Ascenders will be coming from the outer space levels by then, probably. Going through the same process that we did. All right? Okay, Rodney, would you take the next one, the 7th
Okay.
Mansion?
The 7 Mansion worlds are in charge of the Morancha supervisors and the Melchizedeks. There is an acting governor on each world who is directly responsible to the Jerusalem rulers. The Uversa conciliators maintain headquarters on each of the Mansion worlds, while adjoining is the local rendezvous of the technical advisors. The reversion directors and celestial artisans maintain group headquarters on each of these worlds. The Sporanka function from Mansion World number 2 onward, while all 7, in common with the other transitional culture planets, and the headquarters world are abundantly provided with spermagia of standard creation.
Okay, do y'all want me to explain who all these beings are to you, or not?
Sure,
Yeah.
Okay, the Uversa conciliators. These are part of a group. The conciliators are basically a being that understands the supreme being better than any other group. Okay? So they are there for advisement. They're also part with the technical advisors in in some of the traveling courts and that sort of thing. So there's someone there all the time for adjudication matters. Okay? That's the conciliators and technical advisors. Also with the conciliators, we get the opinion of the supreme being from them. Okay? The reversion directors, we remember those are the people that help us to relax and entertain us and that sort of thing. The celestial artisans are those that beautify the universe. Okay? Now, the Sporanga, I don't know if you remember this from the previous papers we've studied, but the Sporanga are the midway creatures of the Morancha type beings. Okay, so the Sporanga really take over the function of the midwayers from physical planets from the second mansion world on for us, and the Spornasia are the beings or the animals that basically help beautify the planet along with the celestial artisans. They do all the garden work and that sort of thing, but they also care for the infants that come to the finaliter world that die before they reach age. So when they get to the nursery world or the finaliter world, it's the Spornasia that takes all their physical needs, takes care of changing diapers and the whole 9 yards, just like they would. They're basically like nannies for these children full time. Okay, they also take care of all the gardening needs, the physical needs of the planet. Right.
Well, it says that when we get there, we will eat and drink, but it'll all be consumed. Do the babies need diapers?
That is a big question. I do not know, Millie. I really don't.
I don't think they will.
Well, no. Remember, y'all, that they're physical beings. They're more physical than just a Morancha being. They don't get their Morancha body per se like we do until they go to they translate to the first mansion world. So they see, excuse me, they sound like they are very physical with the exception of no reproductive capabilities. Okay? So, they may have diapers just like babies on this planet, because we know, we're going to know this from paragraphs coming up, that they take up exactly from the point where they died on this planet. So if they were 30 seconds old when they die, there's 30 seconds old when they appear on the mansion worlds. Okay? So they'll be the same age, the same type of physical establishment with just not having reproductive capabilities.
Thank you.
Hey Roger, I had a question.
Sure.
It says the 7 mansion boards are in charge of the Morancha supervisors and the Melchizedeks, but it doesn't say who's in charge.
The Morancha supervisors and the Melchizedeks are in charge. I believe that's what they meant by that statement.
Right, because I'm thinking the 7 mansion boards are in charge of.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
well, I
the
think
Morancha worlds don't have personality.
That's right. It's just really just the opposite. The Morancha supervisor and the Melchizedeks are in charge of those worlds because they assign an active governor general for each one of the worlds, right?
They are in the charge of
the
Morancha
charge.
supervisors and
Yeah.
Melchizedeks.
That's right.
They are in the charge of.
So
That means that the Morancha supervisor and Melchizedeks.
there's a "the" missing from
charge.
this slide, isn't there?
Yeah, the mansion
Yeah.
worlds are in the charge of
Oh, that's right.
the Morancha supervisors.
It just somehow got left out on the translation here.
Yeah, mine says are in the charge of the Morancha.
In the charge.
Yeah.
The word is the. TH.
In other words, they're the ones in charge, right?
So the Morancha supervisors and the Melchizedeks are in charge of the 7 mansion worlds.
That's right. That's
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Yeah.
They frequently write things in a manner that causes us to misunderstand.
Yeah. Okay, let's see next. The Finalider's World. I guess I'm up. Although only Finaliders and certain groups of salvaged children and their caretakers are resident on Transition World number 1, provision is made for the entertainment of all classes of spirit beings, transition mortals, and student visitors. Spornasia, who function on all these worlds, are hospitable hosts to all beings whom they can recognize. They have a vague feeling concerning the Finaliders, but cannot visualize them. They must regard them much as you do the angels in your present physical state. Now remember, the Spornasia are the beings that don't have souls, right? They're reincarnated. They do not go on the ascension plan. They stay on the same planet, working the same job, 50,000 years at a time. They give them new bodies over and over and over again. You know, remember that from last time? 2 weeks ago? All right.
Remember,
Okay. Diane, would you take the next one?
Thus, the Finality world is a sphere of exquisite physical beauty and extraordinary Morancha embellishment. The great spirit abode located at the center of activities, the Temple of the Finaliters, is not visible to the unaided material or early Morancha vision. But the energy transformers are able to visualize many of these realities to ascending mortals. And from time to time they do thus function, as on the occasions of the class assemblies of the Mansion World students on this cultural sphere.
So it's the energy transformers that changes our vision, allowing us to see the Morancha temple, the Finalider temple, and the Finaliters. Now remember, it's the energy transformers. I don't know if y'all remember this from the life of Christ, but it's the energy transformers that did most of the physical things and the miracles of Jesus. They changed the water into wine. They were active in the healings and the mass healings that Jesus did. All these things that required physical manipulation, the energy transformers are the beings that actually did it. Okay?
They must have been important in raising Lazarus.
They were there, they were part of raising Lazarus. They were also part of this revelation, because it mentions in one of the paragraphs when it talks about the revelation itself that the being that's talking in the paper says that the reason I can see the building that we're standing in is because of the energy transformer visualizes it to us. So the energy transformers were active during the time of giving us this revelation also. Okay? And they're under the power supervisors and the mechanical controllers, that sort of thing. So the energy transformers are the beings, if y'all want to remember this, that allows us to see other beings and that sort of thing. It's also the energy transformers that allowed the apostles to see the other beings when Jesus was on Mount, what was it? Mount Herod, I believe, was during the time he met with Melchizedek and Gabriel.
The Transfiguration,
Transfiguration, that's right.
I believe that's on one, I can't remember.
Yeah, but it was the energy transformers that allowed the apostles to see them during this this happening, and it was at the request of Jesus that they do that.
Hey Roger, how exactly did the energy transformers turn the water into wine? Did they slow down time?
They probably sped up or slowed down time, one of the two. I'm not sure which.
So this was considered a miracle, correct?
This was considered a miracle, but like all the miracles of Jesus, it had a physical cause, right? So Jesus didn't just wave his hand and the water turned into wine. He had a whole host of celestial beings aiding him in doing these things.
Do you think he could see the celestial being?
Oh, sure. I'm sure he could. But the other thing comes out to this. anything that a creator son wills to be becomes, right? So, but the way it becomes is what? Is the manipulation of physical matter and energy matter, right?
Roger, so also they were the ones that basically accelerated the process of decaying Jesus' body.
That's right. That's exactly right. And to do that, even though it was a request of the whole host of the guardian angels and the midwares and everyone, even though it was their request to do this, it was actually probably an energy transformer that actually did the work, right? Sped up time. So,
Hey, Roger,
yeah.
you should check out a documentary called The Face of Jesus by Ray Downing.
Yeah, I've seen
He
that.
that is amazing, where they
Yeah.
actually take the evidence from the shroud
Yeah,
and they turn it into a 3D image.
yeah,
And
that
for
was,
some reason, the shroud contained that ability to do that in today's 21st century.
yeah, that is an amazing show. I've seen it a couple times actually. Okay, so this is a picture of the Finaliter world, and at the center is the Temple of the Finaliters, right? And this is us down here, and the energy transformer, who is this guy right here, allows us to see the temple and the Finaliters during these occasions of assembly, basically. And and this does what for us, really? It boosts our faith in the process of going to paradise and returning. Okay, so right off the bat, from the very first mansion world, the energy transformers allows us to see the Finaliters and the temple of the Finaliters, so we know in reality from the very first mansion world that the pathway to paradise and meeting God the Father and coming back is truly a reality. Okay? So this jumps us from the world of faith to what? To the world of reality just on the first viewing, doesn't it? You know? So if you're a doubting Thomas, would this not convince you, you think? I think it
So,
would.
so basically, honey, Roger, after we go to the go to paradise and become a finaliter, then we come back to the mansion world of our super universe, of our local universe, and that is that, I mean, a standard procedure?
That is maybe a standard procedure, dear, or it could be that they put us on assignment in a totally different universe too.
Okay.
That's possible. They don't have to send us back, but apparently they send these beings back to this mansion world to help boost our morality, our hope of making it to paradise like they did, but it also boosts our faith in God the Father, doesn't it? You know?
So, hey, Roger, you're really not allowed to be on that Finaliter world until you become a Finaliter?
Well, no, you're allowed to go there as soon as you get to the first mansion world, but you won't take up residence there. You would go there to visit and to take care of the children in the nurseries, right?
That's correct. Thank you.
You know, that's the reason you would be on that world. Or for class assemblies, right, on the mansion world of new students and that sort of thing. I'm sure they do this to boost the new students or the new ascenders' mental capability of perceiving the pathway to paradise. I'm sure that's a good reason to do that, you know. All right. Millie, would you take the next one?
Got it. Okay. All through the mansion world experience, you are in a spiritually aware. You are in a way spiritually aware of the presence of your glorified brethren of paradise attainment. But it is very refreshing now and then, actually, to perceive them as they function in their headquarters abode. You will not spontaneously visualize finaliters until you acquire true spirit vision.
So these transformers allows us to see them. We won't spontaneously see them. They will only be visible to us during these periods of vision, expanded vision. Okay? But we'll sense that they're there all the time.
Like since angels are here all the time and we don't see them.
Yeah, it's kind of along the same pathway, isn't it, Millie? I mean, because we know there's angels here, we just cannot see them, right?
Correct. Thank you.
Tim, would you take the next one?
On the first mansion world, all survivors must pass the requirements of the parental commission from their native planets. The present Urantia Commission consists of 12 parental couples recently arrived who have had mortal experience in rearing 3 or more children to the pubescent age. Service on this commission is rotational and is for only 10 years as a rule. All who fail to satisfy these commissioners as to their parental experience must further qualify by service in the home and the material sons on Jerusalem, or in part in the probation nursery on the Finalator's world.
Okay, so 12 couples from our planet are chosen to determine whether we've met this service of parental supervision, right? And that's not only from our planet, but all 1,619 that's currently populated. Each one of those planets has their own 12 that makes that determination. That way, these are all beings from your own native planet that makes the decision as to whether you have satisfied this parental obligation, okay? And they serve for about 10 years and then they go on the ascension plan. So they will be the ones. The reason they use people from our own planet because they determine if our experience on this planet is valid for that parental credit, right? And it would be, that's why they pick 12 couples from each of the planets, so it's always couples that are raised in the same experience as those coming from the planets. Does that make sense?
Hey Roger, what would be the pubescent age?
That would be around 16.
And what happens if the person was not a good parent?
Then you have to still fulfill this parental experience, Millie. And you can do it 2 ways. You can get partial credit by taking care of infants on the Finalator world, right? You get a partial credit for that. You can get the other amount of the credit by serving in the material sons on Jerusalem, serving in their family, helping take care of their children.
Okay, thank you.
So,
I have a question, Roger.
Yeah.
I know a lot of questions tonight, but so when you are serving, taking care of children, you do not have a husband or do not have a wife. So you're basically not in a couple relationship when you're taking care of these children. Doesn't that make it easier to take care of the children?
no, not necessarily, dear, because when you get to the mansion worlds, even though you are not married any longer, and people don't like to hear me say this, you can still go through the mansion worlds as a couple, right? Whoops, I lost somebody there.
I'm still here. I think it was Tim.
Tim, I think.
Yeah.
You lost him.
Yeah, let's see if it gets him back for us here. But yeah, you can still go through the mansion world as a couple, right? Not as a married couple, but you can, if you have children, both of you have children, you can still raise those children as much
As
like
if you were a
Yeah.
married couple.
That's
just
right.
just a couple.
just a couple.
You don't have to have the license.
That's right. That's right. The marriage is just a piece of paper, and it always has been, right? The
That's right.
marriage is the commitment to one another. That's what a marriage is, really. And that commitment can go on indefinitely. It really is your choosing.
Well, it's difficult to raise a child by yourself.
It is.
Warren was gone a lot. He was in Vietnam when Jennifer was born. He didn't get home till she was a year old.
Yeah.
She was born just a couple of weeks after he left.
Oh, precious.
And then when George was 1 or 2, he left again.
Yeah.
And all through the military career, he was in and out of the house, not as much as Navy people,
Yeah.
but he frequently was away for weeks on end. But that first year was horrendous.
I'm sure it's difficult to raise. It's tough being a. I don't know if Tim is back online or not. We'll try.
It's tough being a single mom,
It is.
and I didn't have to have a job to support my infant daughter.
Yeah.
You know, I was getting a military paycheck.
Right.
But a single mom that has to go to work too, that's got to be worse than everything.
And it's difficult to be a single dad too. You know. when
I
you-
can believe that.
You know, when you have to assume the mothering instinct, and it's not natural for men to do that, it is even more difficult, you know, for men. So,
Can't get Tim back.
no, I keep dragging him back over here, and it's trying to dial him. But, may he have a problem with his connection. We'll keep trying. So, okay, so who is up to read?
I think I am.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Rodney.
Okay, but irrespective of parental experience, Mansion World parents who have growing children in the probation nursery are given every opportunity to collaborate with the Moracha custodians of such children regarding their instruction and training. These parents are permitted to journey there for visits as often as 4 times a year. And it is one of the most touchingly beautiful scenes of all the ascending career to observe the Mansion World parents embrace their material offspring on the occasions of their periodic pilgrimages to the finale world. While one or both parents may leave a mansion world ahead of the child, they are quite often contemporary for a season.
Okay, now notice here there's a couple things. First, it talks about the Mansion World parents embracing their material offsprings. Do y'all see that?
So,
So to me that says they're what?
material.
They're material. They're
It's still
physical.
pretty physical.
That's right. They're pretty
That's
physical.
interesting, huh?
You know, which is very important. You know, you think about it. So also they can visit as often as 4 times a year. So it's not like they're there all the time, right? So that's when the responsibility of the Melchizedeks and the Spernasia steps in and helping raise these children, right? But you have part of the supervision of raising them.
4
Okay?
times a year.
4 times a year, so you get to visit.
It's
4
like
times.
it's like they get put into child care.
Yeah, almost put in childcare. And the other thing, Millie, that makes this interesting is this. If this is the case, as much time as we have to make it all the way to paradise, we must be assigned a lot of duties and responsibilities on that first mansion world to only be available 4 times a year.
Yeah, but it doesn't say how long we can spend with.
No, it doesn't, but still, you think about all the time there is in the universe, 4 times a year is not very much, regardless, even if it's like a month at a time, right? So,
True.
what this tells me is that when we're on that first mansion world, we're pretty busy all the time, aren't we? I mean, we've got activities going on constantly to try to bring us up to speed for our ascension plan, okay? But this is a very important part of this because people that do not have children in this life need to go through this process and help supervise these children as they're coming up, making a decision to go on and become ascenders. Now, the reason we only get partial credit for this is probably because we can only do this 4 times a year, right?
So, Roger, I've got a question.
Yeah.
I don't think it states it in here, but these material children, surely they have to die as well.
They
in
do.
order to go on.
Yeah, they translate to that first mansion world. They really only have to die once, Rodney, but they translate just like we do to go to that first mansion world.
Yeah.
So they have to do what? They have to lose the physical body and do what? Gain the Morontia body
3 days later.
3 days later. That's right. Just like we do when we die, right?
I wonder how old they live.
Huh?
I wonder what age they live to.
They
70?
No, they say they only have to the age of decision, which is around, for most kids, 16 to 17. Okay?
And then they die?
If they do not make the decision to go on the ascension plan, they have to make a choice. There's no choice about that. You have to make the choice. But if you choose not to go on to the mansion world, you cease to exist.
Man,
And that's what it says in this paper. We're going to get to that in a minute.
interesting.
Yeah, we'll get to that. It comes up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a very important decision. Boy, I hate it that we've lost him.
There must be a lot of intensity, though, more so than here, on the physical level. Here, like on
What
the
age to make an important decision?
Yeah, that's a very important decision. And the other thing is, their whole instruction and training and everything else is what? Keyed towards making that decision, I'm sure.
where it isn't here, actually.
It's not here at all, and that's a big decision. If you're raised 16 years, constantly bringing up the fact that you must decide soon, then that's in your the high level of thought all the time, right? So I'm sure they're quite prepared by the time they get to that decision. I can't imagine someone deciding not to survive, but apparently that happens, So,
It probably has to do with the disposition of the individual.
yeah. I mean, think of all the teenagers that commit suicide. That's the saddest thing I can think of. It is a teenager that commits suicide because of lack of understanding, lack of training, lack of someone guiding them along through life to help them make correct decisions. And this would be a good example of that. If they went all the way through the training on the nursery world and got to the end and decided not to go on, what a tragedy that would be, wouldn't it? So, anyway, okay, let's keep going here. I hope Tim gets it straightened out and gets back with us.
I keep trying to ask the question, reading my speakers off. These teenagers that commit suicide,
Yeah.
where do they end up?
That is a good question, Millie, and there's no sure answer on that. There really isn't. Makes me wonder if they don't wake up here on this mansion world, on the Finaliter world, and are given the opportunity or explained the process of the ascension plan, because I can't imagine someone not making
Oh, hey,
it.
Roger.
Hey, Tim, I'm glad
Yeah,
you're
I
back.
apologize. I was on Skype and my computer, the internet just crashed.
Yeah,
So I had to restart it and then restart the router. It's still spinning.
yeah,
Right? No, I don't know what it's doing. But
okay.
I'm glad to be back.
Well, I'm glad you're back.
I
But
have it.
anyway, Millie, when I am kind of the opinion that since they're not of age, if they commit suicide like that they probably end up on this world and have some remedial training to make the decision, because I can't imagine someone making a permanent decision out of ignorance. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Well,
And
excessive pain, too, in circumstances.
yeah, it's a
It's
circumstance.
not easy to be here.
And it
Yeah,
states in the
that's right.
book, several places that you cannot not make it to the first mansion world out of circumstances and stupidity, right? You have to make that decision, a logical decision, and I don't think in a case like that a child has made a logical decision. I really don't. So, but that's my personal opinion. It doesn't state that in the book, but that's kind of my personal opinion on it.
But hey, Roger, they do say that, the most important thing is living this life and completing it.
That's
So
right.
if an individual commits suicide, if he's an adult, what exactly happens?
Well,
Does he,
if he's an adult and there's not extenuating circumstances, personally, I believe his life ends there.
so the papers say that he will cease to be no more.
Cease to be no more. His thought adjuster will go to the mansion, father's world, and will not return. Okay, that's the way it is. But in order for that to happen, even there has to be a judgment, and the guardian seraphim has to justify why that person did not survive. So, there's always a process in everything. And I think with children, because they're not always of age of decision when they do these things, that they probably wake up on that finaliter world, and then they're given intensive training on the meanings of life, because many of them just do not understand.
Well, all of these people who get there before they should be there are all children of God, and they're not annihilated willy-nilly.
No, they're not. There's no one, though. There is no one not salvaged that is salvageable. Let me put it that way, right?
God. That's
So even the adults, if
Even
they
the
commit
adults.
suicide.
Yeah, if it's out of stupidity, pain, disease, things like that, there's probably extenuating circumstances. But if you just want to cease your existence, that's a whole different ballgame. That's an adult decision. So, and those beings, I truly believe, do not wake up again on the mansion worlds.
So these are people that actually do it to hurt other people, like, you divorced me, I'm just going to kill myself to get back at you. That would be one example, correct?
Yeah, that would be an example.
Because on other websites, I've heard some people try to rationalize it, and they say, well, if he committed suicide, then he's probably going to survive. Maybe due to the grief of the individuals that they're feeling, but I want the answer that comes from the papers.
Well, I can tell you personally, under no circumstances whatsoever would I take my own life for self-pity and self-aggrand. It's just not going to happen, because we are given an opportunity in this life to experience life. I don't care if it's pain, I don't care if it's divorce, I don't care how bad you think you got it. This is a learning experience to the next step of our real existence, and it's a gift. And I don't care how bad it gets, there is no excuse in my book for someone to take their own life.
But you're not mentally anguished. You're not mentally distressed. You're
I have been there, Billy.
Facility.
But see,
I
there's some
have-
people that have a
I
chemical
have-
imbalance and they have depression, and
I
they can't
have-
help it.
I have been through that. I've been through depression. I've been on medication for depression. I am quite aware of the depths of despair that the human's condition can get in. I can tell you that personally, but I have never gotten to the point where I even considered taking my own life, because my life is not my own to take. It is a gift from God. Okay?
And you have a set of values too, Roger. A lot of people don't have a set of values.
That's
You
true.
know,
That's
I mean,
true. But I
I
would,
have been through a lot, but still you consistently have had values that you held dear to your heart. You
yeah.
know, and
Most people who commit suicide do not have that system of values. They
They
were
may
not
not,
raised
Bill.
with that. They were not taught that.
And that's why we can't judge them, can we? We can't say whether they're going to survive or not. We really can't. Only the judges of the universe can do that. And the whole point is there is only, and it tells us this in the Urantia book, there is only one excuse to give your life, and that is to give it for another being, to protect another person, or instead of another person's life. That is the only thing. That's why these gentlemen that go in the military like I did and give their life for their country and things like that, they are really trading their life for the lives of others. And there's no sacrifice a human can being that is greater than that. I don't care what anybody says.
That
So-
was well said, Roger.
So whether you like the military or not, when you sign that paper, it basically states that You are trading your life for the life of your country, and that's what
Well,
you
you know,
do.
Jesus said that too, you know, the
Yeah.
best, that quote, you know, to give your life for your friends.
And that is the only excuse for laying down your life, really, is to do it for another. Okay? And boy, we got way off base, but that's pretty much our whole concept of suicide, you know. So there's many questions about it, we just don't know, because they don't tell us in the book.
With maturity, you ride that wave of grief, and that grief is transmuted into wisdom. And
Right.
of course, experience, which turns into wisdom. You know, but not everybody can ride the grief.
No, they can't. And when you're young, like a young person, you don't have the wisdom to fall back on either, right? So if you're a child, if you're before the age of decision, do you think it's a wise decision to kill yourself? No, of course it isn't. But they do not have the maturity to make that decision, do they? Sometimes they do it willy-nilly, you know. I mean, it's amazing how many teenagers, we lost Tim again. It's amazing how many teenagers have killed themselves for stupid things, you know. So anyway, let's keep going. And I think I'm up reading next. I'm going to skip over me and let Diane take the next one.
Okay. No ascending mortal can escape the experience of rearing children, their own or others, either on the material worlds or subsequently on the finaler world or on Jerusalem. Fathers must pass through this essential experience just as certainly as mothers. It is an unfortunate and mistaken notion of modern peoples on Urantia that child culture is largely the task of mothers. Children need fathers as well as mothers, and fathers have perennial experience as much as do mothers.
I'm back just to let everybody know it did that thing to me again.
We hate
I'm
that.
having a hard time tonight, Roger.
That's all right. We'll just keep.
I don't know
bringing
what's
you back
going
in.
on with my computer.
Okay, so the next paragraph. No ascending mortals can escape the experience of rearing children. It says here explicitly, no ascending mortal can escape this experience, right? So all of us, when we get either to the mansion world or we get to Jerusalem, one of the two, must go through this experience of raising children as a father or a mother, okay? There's no way around it. And it states here that fathers need this experience just as much as mothers do, right? All right. Millie, I think you're up again.
Okay, the probationary nursery. The infant receiving schools of Satania are situated on the Finaliter world, the first of the Jerusalem transition culture spheres. These infant receiving schools are enterprises devoted to the nurture and training of the children of time, including those who have died on the evolutionary worlds of space before the acquirement of individual status on the universe records. That's the 32nd thing. In the event of the survival of either or both of such a child's parents, the guardian of destiny deputizes her associate cherubim as the custodian of the child's potential identity, charging the cherubim with the responsibility of delivering this undeveloped soul into the hands of the mansion world teachers in the probationary nurseries of the Morancha worlds.
Okay, there's a lot in this paragraph we need to talk about, okay? First of all, it talks about the children of time, including those who have died on the evolutionary worlds before acquirement of individual status. What does that mean?
They get the thought adjuster.
Before they get their thought adjuster. Before they get their thought adjuster, they're wards of the universe and they're rematerialized when the first parent hits the mansion world. Okay? But these are beings that have no thought adjuster, so their mental records are what? Not there, are they? Because it's before they get their thought adjuster. Remember, the thought adjuster takes the mental records to the mansion world. So, what happens is the guardian of destiny, or the guardian angel, charges the cherubim, who's also part of the guardian system, right, with the responsibility of developing the soul of delivering the soul in the hands of the Mansion World teachers. So, that part of you that makes your soul is still there, even if you have no thought adjuster. So that guardian cherubim is deputized and delivers that soul to the Mansion World, or to the Mansion World teachers on the Finaliter world. That's before the thought adjuster, right? What happens if a child has a thought adjuster? Then the thought adjuster goes to the Finaliter world and the guardian seraphim, right? And they're still repersonalized what? As soon as the first parent shows up on the Mansion World. One or more. If both parents don't ever make it to the Mansion World, then that child is allowed to be repersonalized for whom? Those who do not have children. You follow me?
Hey, Roger.
Oh, yeah.
Is it possible for a child not to have a thought adjuster? What if he's just evil?
No, that is not possible. At age 5 to 6, when they make their first moral decision, Tim, they are always given a thought adjuster. And that's the case since the day of Pentecost. Right? That's when thought adjusters were poured out upon all the earth along with the Spirit of truth.
Because I was watching this series called The Iceman Tapes, and he was pretty much abused by his parents and his dad.
Yeah.
And at a certain age, he would take cats and tie them together, and they'd rip each other apart and kick dogs off the building. And he was, a child, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think around 8 or something like that. So
Yeah, but he still
he was
had a
pretty-
thought adjuster, but chose not to follow the leadings of that thought adjuster, Tim.
So the adjuster wouldn't leave him? Or
He wouldn't leave him, not unless he was insane. Under certain cases of insanity, the thought adjuster is allowed to leave.
Well,
But-
he grew up to be a contract killer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the thought adjuster would still be there,
would still be there.
even though he was deprived of.
Yeah.
The psychiatrist told him that he had
Yeah.
he
No.
couldn't feel anything.
Now remember, the thought adjuster is a fragment of God the Father. And there is no force greater than God the Father. Okay, so it doesn't matter how evil someone embraces or anything along that line, God the Father is there to overcome it. That's what the thought adjuster is there for, is to train us and spiritualize us, right?
So unless somebody has a really big mental, what do you call it? A mental problem. That's
Yeah,
when the
insane,
adjuster
really.
leaves.
Yeah, it would only be from insanity that someone would do that. But that would be the only case I can think of, and they still would have a thought adjuster. The difference is this: someone like that, when they die, they would not be repersonalized on the Mansion World.
Exactly.
Yeah. So makes you wonder if Hitler's there, doesn't it?
Oh, no, really.
Okay. Anything else I want to say about this paragraph? Let me think. Okay, the other thing in this paragraph is it says, in the event of the survival of either or both of the child's parent, the guardian destiny deputizes her associate cherubim and is in custody of the potential identity. Okay? So either or both, it doesn't matter. Okay, they still make it to the nursery world.
Hey,
Nothing
Roger,
is
when they
wasted.
say the word custodian,
Yes.
is that just the caretaker?
That's the caretaker. That's just like a guardian seraphim that takes our soul as adults. You know, the guardian seraphim is the one that carries your soul to the Mansion World. It's the adjuster that takes your mental patterns. Your mental memories are taken by the seraphim, but no, it's the other way around. Your mental patterns are taken by the seraphim, but your mental memories are possessions of the thought adjuster. So even if you don't survive, the thought adjuster still retains all your memories. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's keep going. I think you're up, Tim. And
It is the same
Yeah.
deserted cherubim who, as Mansion World teachers, under the supervision of the Melchizedeks, maintain such extensive educational facilities for the training of the probationary wards of the Finaliters. These wards of the Fenalators, these infants of ascending mortals, are always personalized as their exact physical status at the time of death, except for the reproductive potential. This awakening occurs at the exact time of the parental arrival on the first mansion world. And then are these children given every opportunity as they are to choose the heavenly way, just as they would have made such a choice on the worlds where death so ultimate, untimely
untimely.
Terminated their careers.
Okay, I want to bring a point up on this paragraph because I think it's the most important point of this paragraph. And that is this. Just as they would have made such a choice on the worlds where death so untimely terminated their careers, what responsibility is it of ours to make sure they make that proper choice?
To raise them with good morals and values?
That's right. It's our total responsibility to do that, isn't it? Our children are our responsibility to bring up in the ways of the Father so that when they get to that time of choice on this world or on the mansion world, either one, they make the proper choice. Right?
That's correct, because the contract killer, Roger, didn't have that choice. He had two abusing parents.
That's right. So
that would hit him over with a bat just because he looked at his father.
So it is the parents' responsibility to not only train their children, but to lead them in the ways of God, is it not? So that when they get to that point where they have to make that decision, they have all the personality, they have all the things in their personality to make the proper decision. Do you see the responsibility that comes from this? Does that make sense to y'all?
It makes sense, perfect.
So Tim, what happened to the parents? Were they convicted of child abuse, or
No, actually they just died of old age. They were never convicted. He had a brother, and it's called the Iceman tapes.
Yeah.
And he was pretty much abused. It was bad. And the psychiatrist told him that he had some sort of the only rush, I hate to say it, is that it gets through his sex. He doesn't get a rush from anything else, or he doesn't feel absolutely nothing when he kills somebody or takes a life. He used to kill somebody and watch them die, watch them fade away, see the blankness in their eyes. But it was actually based on how the parents did not bring him up with good morals and values. So it's a huge responsibility on the parents.
Yeah.
But he had that rare condition. I don't know what it's called. I can't remember. But based on the parents upbringing him.
Let's get back to this paragraph. There's a couple
Roger, I have a question. The first sentence, it is the same deserted cherubim.
Yeah.
Who deserted the cherubim?
Okay, remember that when you die, your seraphim goes on to the mansion world with you, right? The cherubim are deserted. They stay on the planet, are reassigned to another person, okay? They do not go on to the mansion world with you normally, okay? But what they're talking about here is since these infants died prematurely, the seraphim assigns the trust to the deserted cherubim, the one that was in charge of this child. They assign the trust to them to carry them to the finale of the world.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, now, okay, the other thing I wanted to mention from this paragraph is this. They are always personalized in their exact physical status at the time of death, except for reproductive potential. So, when they're reborn on the finale of their world, they're exactly as they were the day they perished, right? So that when the parents go to the finale world, show up, as soon as they awaken, the children are exactly as they were when they died.
So you mean they look identical?
Look exactly alike. They're physically exactly alike, with the exception of not being able to reproduce.
I mean, race and everything.
Yes.
Hair color, eye color.
Everything, yeah.
What about if they like had cancer or something like that?
Well, they would be free from disease, sweetie.
Okay.
I mean, all beings are free from disease when they wake up on the finale of the world. But, or injury or things like that, but they would still be the exact age, mental capabilities, everything would be just exactly alike. Because what are they trying to do? They're trying to allow these children to go through the experience of a mortal existence, right?
Question. If a couple loses their child at age 8 or 9, 10, whatever, and 10 years later the couple dies,
Right.
when they see their child on the mansion world, will that child still be 10 years old? Or
Yes. Yes.
He's 5 years later or 10 years later.
No,
He'll still be,
They would still be 10 years old, Billy.
okay.
That look exactly the same. Now, remember, when we get to the mansion worlds, we're not going to look exactly the same anyway, are we?
That's we have Morancha body.
We'll have Morancha bodies, we'll have brand new Morancha beings, and our Morancha body will resemble some of our physical features on this planet, but they're not going to be exactly correct. In other words, if you're 85 years old when you die and you go to the mansion world, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to look 85 when you get to the mansion world, right?
And you know, Jesus must have looked very similar to what he did.
Well, remember, Rodney, when they said everyone that met Jesus when he was resurrected didn't recognize him.
They didn't, but they recognized his voice.
They recognized his voice and his nature. So that's the way
They recognize his personality. That's what you
Right.
take with you.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And that's what we'll recognize when we get to the mansion worlds. We won't look exactly the same. So if you get to the mansion world and you are ugly as sin on this world, you might be beautiful, the most beautiful creature you ever saw when you get to the mansion world.
Well, that's also going to be based on how we treated others and how our good deeds and how we loved one another.
That's
If we do that, then we'll reap a good, beautiful Morancha body, correct?
That's exactly right, Tim. Your body reflects your personality, right? Which is kind
I
of
wonder what Mother Teresa looks like.
So just be one beautiful creature.
I'll probably
That's all
have to
I'm
ask her
saying.
out on a date.
So,
She's probably really beautiful.
Well,
She's
that's-
such a good person.
Let's keep going. Who's-
Roger, I've got a question as well.
Yeah, go right ahead, brother.
Like with Cadence here, I don't think that she has a thought adjuster because I don't think she's capable of making a decision.
That may be
She's at age 10.
that may be the case, Rodney.
It could be she dies when she's 20 years old. Now,
Yes.
she's not a child, and I don't know how she's going to fit in.
Well, because Rodney, she has a mental age right now. Okay, so if she's at the age of, let's say, 1 year old, in her mental capabilities, that's the age she'll awaken at. You
But
follow?
her body,
But her body would not reflect that she was 10 years old. It would reflect her mental capabilities. That's what they're talking about, the physical being the exact point of where you were left off, right?
mentally.
Mentally. That's right. Yeah.
But she'll have a perfect physical body.
She'll have a perfect physical body, and she won't have any of these problems she has now, right?
Oh, imagine that.
She'll be healed.
Yeah, she'll be healed, and she'll continue on with the normal process of making the decision and have as much time as any child would from that point on.
You know, imagine the joy that these people, these adults are going to feel. The ones that were born without an arm or a leg are going to be able to experience, both arms and both legs. That's going to be wonderful for
Or
them.
someone that
Or
was
somebody who's blind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, like when my mom died, she had Alzheimer's. It's like, somebody took a picture of our family at the gravesite, which was inappropriate, but they did. And my daughter and I were smiling, because we were so grateful that she had passed over and that she was free of the disease.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's such a hard thing to go through.
It is.
it is, but once I was so surprised how much joy I had that she had made it through and that she was on, she was going to be resurrected.
because my, I think, great-grandpa or something like that had Alzheimer's, and it was pretty rough.
Well, it is rough, but, you know, the thing is that when they do pass over, you know, they no longer have that.
That disease anymore, yeah. All right, let's keep going, y'all.
Are you having a hard time managing us today, aren't you, Roger?
Yeah. This is such a wonderful, it brings up so many issues. It's just a wonderful thing.
Doing great, everybody.
Rodney, I think you're up next, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, on the nursery world, probationary creatures are grouped according to whether or not they have adjusters. For the adjusters come to indwell these material children just as on the worlds of time. Children of pre-adjuster ages are cared for in families of 5, ranging in ages from 1 year and under up to approximately 5 years, or at age when the adjuster arrives.
Okay, so these are pre-adjuster children, right? And they're raised in groups of 5, families of 5, all right?
And that would be Cleveland's.
Hey, Roger, when
that
they
would
say
be
probationary creatures, they're talking about children without adjusters?
Right, yeah, they're considered probationary children. All creatures are considered probationary creatures until they make the choice of survival. Okay? So, until they make that choice of survival, they're considered probationary. That is why, if they choose not to survive, they cease to exist immediately. Okay? Because they're on this probation. They're given a second chance, really, to make the decision because they're too young to make it. Right? All right. And let's go to the next picture. Okay. So, this is a picture of the probationary nursery on the Finaliter world. Okay. And it says these wards of the Finaliters, these infants of ascending mortals, are always personalized as of their exact physical status at the time of death, except for the reproductive potential. This awakening occurs at the exact time of the parental arrival on the first mansion world. Okay, and then we go on to the next slide. And this is the probationary nursery. Okay, and these are the pre-adjuster age, and these range from 1 to 5, and they're raised in a group of 5 each in these homes. Okay, in the probationary nursery. Okay, now we're going to go on to the next slide. We got a slide similar to that coming up. Okay, and I'm losing my voice, so Diane, would you read the next one?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I lost my place on it.
All children on the evolving worlds who have thought adjusters. 4724.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
All children
All children on the
Okay. All children on the evolving worlds who have thought adjusters, but who before death have not made a choice concerning the paradise career, are also repersonalized on the finality world of the system, where they likewise grow up in the families of the material sons and their associates, as do those little ones who arrive without adjusters, but who will subsequently receive the mystery monitor after attaining the requisite age of moral choice.
Okay, so these are the ones who received an adjuster but had not had a chance to make that choice, right, for the paradise career. All right.
So the material sons and daughters continue to have the reproductive organs. I mean, they continue to have children.
Yeah, the material sons and daughters are just like we are in the sense that they can have children just like we do.
But they continue to have it, and we do not have that function anymore. After
That's right. We do not have that function anymore when we make the mansion worlds. But the material sons and daughters do. They are considered what? Sex creatures, right? A higher level sex creature. But that is why we have to go observe them if we have an inadequate parental experience or an inadequate sex life when we're on this planet, right? Because they're the only lower order of high order beings that still have sex, right? So that they can reproduce. Okay, Millie, would you take the next one?
The adjuster, indwelt children, and youths on the finality world are also reared in families of 5, ranging in age from 6 to 14. Approximately, these families consist of children whose ages are 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. Anytime after 16, if final choice has been made, they translate to the mansion world and begin their paradise ascent. Some make a choice before this age and go on to the ascension spheres, but very few children under the age of 16 years of age, as reckoned by Urantia standards, will be found on the mansion worlds.
So very few children make that permanent final choice until they reach age 16, right?
Well, actually, under 16, because they say very few will be
That's
found
right.
in the mansion world, so they,
That's
they,
right.
yeah.
All right. So this is the adjuster indwelt children, and they're raised in groups, families of 5, and each of these families, this is interesting the way they break this down. Each family normally has 5 children ranging in ages from 6 to 14. Approximately these consist of children whose ages are 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. Now, why would they divide up these families like this? Got any idea?
Because that's more normal for families.
That's a more normal for a family. So these children have the opportunity to do what? Have older and younger brothers and sisters, right? Just like a normal family. And normally there is one child that is the oldest in the family and one child that is the youngest. And this gives a semblance of a pretty normal family, right?
Hey Roger, I had a good question for you.
Sure.
It talks about how the races are segregated. We wake up, the blue, orange, etc. You get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, now what about the children? Are they segregated too, based on race?
You know, that's a good question, Tim, and I do not know. I really don't. I'd be lying if I said I did. I don't know if there's any differences in the way they're grouped race-wise or not. They may be grouped differently as the type of beings and the type of planet they came from. I would assume that. But I don't know about the races, because after we leave this planet and we start getting rid of the marks of the beast and our unsocial tendencies, race becomes a non-issue.
Well,
Right.
maybe I interpreted it wrong, but I remember seeing like houses like for the blue man on the
Uh-huh.
Encyclopedia Urantia. I was like, why would they have that? You know, for blue, for yellow, for ebony.
Yeah, because in the early stages of a planet, when you wake up on the mansion world, you'd still have the tendencies of being prejudiced against all other types of races. So they probably do that to keep comfort for the beings that's being awakened, for one, and for socialization of those beings into different groups, right?
So when we wake up, we're just going to be with the blue man, and we won't see any of the other races until we
Yeah.
de-animalize.
Yeah, until we're trained a little bit, we would be more like, if you're white, you'd be with the white race. If you're black, you'd have a tendency to black race. Now, as we get more and more enlightened over time, that's going to be less and less even in the mansion worlds, because if you come from a planet that's mixed races, much like the world is today, we have less problems with that socialization as we did, 200 years ago, right?
Eventually, we'll be olive colored after we integrate more.
That's right. Eventually, we'll all be the same.
With light and life, I mean, planets,
Yeah.
that has to be where your olive complexion, mostly because you've integrated.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Millie, would you take the next one? Turn your mic back on, Millie. Millie, we can't hear you.
I did just read, I think it's Tim who has
Oh,
to
is it?
read the
Oh, I'm
Guardian
sorry.
Seraphim.
Tim, would you take the next one then?
The guardian seraphim attend these youths in the probation nursery on the Finaliter world. just as they spiritually minister to mortals on the evolutionary planets, while the faithful Spornagia minister to their physical necessities, and so do these children grow up on the transition world until such time as they make their final choice.
Okay, so the guardian seraphim tend to these children just like they do on this planet. And then another interesting point in this paragraph is the Spornagia minister to their physical necessities. You see that? And remember, Spornagia are high order animals, right? So these animals are intelligent enough to take care of the children. So they're pretty high on the scale, I would say. Would you?
And when they say transition world, we're talking about the first mansion world?
The first mentioned world, yeah, the finality world, right.
Finality world, okay, thank you.
Okay. Rodney, would you take the next one?
Okay. When material life has run its course, if no choice has been made for the ascendant life, or if these children of time definitely decide against the run of adventure, death automatically terminates their probationary careers. There is no
Adjudication.
adjudication of such cases. There is no resurrection from such a second death. They simply become as though they had not been.
Well, that's pretty harsh, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's flat states that if no choice has been made for the ascendant life, in other words, if they did not decide to go on for the ascendant life, or if they definitely decide against the Havona adventure career, right? Then death terminates their probationary career. In other words, they die. And
But it doesn't just happen. They get counseled and
they get
counseled and counseled.
That's right, Millie. And then it says here that there's no adjudication of such cases. In other words, once this happens, it's over. And
So even if they don't make a choice.
huh?
It says here, even if they don't make a choice.
If they don't make a choice, so they either have to make a choice or they don't make a choice. They're warned over and over and over again, I'm sure, that if you don't make the choice, then your life ends. You know, and once it ends, that's it. It's as if they
That would be
never.
against the will of God.
Pardon me?
So basically, because that would be against the will of God.
That would be against the will of God.
And hey, Roger, this is all happening at the age of 16. They pretty much have the choice to make.
Yeah, they do. By the
You have to make the choice to go on. If you make no choice, then that's not making the choice to go on.
That's right. That's exactly right, Noah. Okay, let's go on to the next one. But if they choose the paradise path of perfection, they're immediately made ready for the translation to the first mansion world, where many of them arrive in time to join their parents in the Havona ascent. After passing through Havona and attaining the deities, these salvaged souls of mortal origin constitute the permanent ascendant citizenship of paradise. These children who have been deprived of the valuable and essential evolutionary experience of the worlds of mortal nativity are not mustered into the core of finality. I want to be clear about this paragraph, so I'm going to go over it at great length here.
Interesting.
Can I ask a question first, Roger?
Sure.
Didn't you say that the word translation means fusing with your adjuster?
No. No, the translation in this case, Tim, is resurrection from death to the first mansion world. That's the translation. We go through 7 translations on the mansion world. Each time we go on to the next mansion world, we're translated into a new Marancha body. You don't keep the same Marancha body through the 7 mansion worlds. You don't keep the permanent Marancha body until you're translated from the 7th mansion world to a Jerusalem citizen. At that point, your Marancha body stays the same throughout.
Okay, thank you, Roger.
So each translation is going from mansion world to mansion world, okay? very important point here.
They're not mustered into the core of the finality.
They're
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
That's the point I want to bring out right now. These children that die before the age of decision, okay, are considered the children of the Father, okay? They are the children of God. When Jesus spoke of influencing these little ones because the guardian seraphim watch out for them, he was talking about the children of God, okay? Because these little ones do not get to experience the experience of going through life, okay? So they become what? They become paradise citizens when they go through the ascension plan. They become permanent citizens of paradise. These are the children of God, the permanent citizens of paradise. They do not become mortal finalators and go back through the universe again. They stay in paradise. Is that clear?
Because they didn't
They didn't
have
have
enough experience.
the experience of life. That's right.
To be able to go back out.
That's right. Now, why would that be? Because they will be raised in a perfect environment on the finality world.
Exactly.
Okay? So the environment they're raised on and the opportunity for them to go through the ascension plan comes from the point of perfection because it's with the finaliters and on the finality world. Okay? So they don't gain the experience of being raised in a planet like ours where there's evil and sin and things going wrong all the time. They pretty much have a perfect existence on the finality world. Okay? So the reason they do not become part of the core of finality is they don't gain the evolutionary experience that the Supreme needs to come into full fruition, right? That's where the Supreme gets its experience. So these children automatically, as they go through the ascension plan, gain experience as an ascender, but they stop when they become a paradise citizen, and they stay on paradise with God the Father permanently.
Hey Roger, I just had a question.
Yeah.
Does the Supreme have a separate personality than the Universal Father, Eternal Son, and Infinite Spirit?
Yes. They do. Separate
thank you.
personality. They do. Okay, so do y'all understand that? So even though they started out as mortal children and they're children of ours, okay, or our children, they still don't gain experience of life. Okay? So these children, when they wake up on the finality world, get the opportunity to go through the ascension plan, but they do not get the opportunity to become the core of finality because they don't have evolutionary experience. All the experience they have going through the mansion worlds and all the way to paradise is the ascension plan experience, not evolutionary experience. Where do we gain our evolutionary experience? We gain that on this planet. Okay? That makes sense, y'all?
Makes a lot of sense.
All right.
I don't remember reading it.
Okay, so those are the children of God, right?
So basically, Rodney's niece would be a child of God.
That's right.
Cadence is going to be a permanent
First
citizen.
citizen on
Permanent
paradise.
citizen of paradise. That's right. Okay. Now, Rodney, keep in mind when she awakens on the finality world, she starts learning and gaining her consciousness and that sort of thing. She'll be totally aware of her relatives and things like that. But she will be slightly different because she won't have the evolutionary experience as you and the rest of the family will, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The first mansion world. We made it to section 3. All right, so now we're starting to figure out the first mansion world. Let's see if we can get through this section before we go on for next week.
I think I'm up.
Yeah, I think you are here.
On the mansion worlds, the resurrected mortal survivors resume their lives just where they left off when overtaken by death. When you go from Urantia to the first mansion world, you will notice considerable change, but if you had come from a more normal and progressive sphere of time, you would hardly notice a difference, except for the fact that you were in possession of a different body. The tabernacle of flesh and blood has been left behind on the world of nativity.
So when you awaken on that first mansion world, except for the fact that you got a new body, you take up your life right where you left off, don't you?
So what does that mean?
That means spiritually, socially, everything in your life starts out right where you are. So if you're a highly evolved spiritual man on this planet, you will be a highly evolved spiritual Morontia being when you get there. But if you're an animal and don't care about anybody, and you make it to the mansion world, you'll still be that animal and don't care about anybody when you get to the mansion world. And
So if you're,
that's what they have to train out of you,
if you're
right?
extremely prejudiced, you'll still have that.
You'll still have the prejudice. That's right, when you wake up on the mansion world. So
Left to left.
the improvements you want to make in this life are the permanent things. You have to be thinking ahead. How do I want to be when I get to the mansion worlds? You know, do I want to be accepting? Do I want to love my neighbor? Do I want to take care of everyone? That's the sort of things you want to develop in this life, not the next life. Okay?
So, hey, Roger, if people have alcohol and drug addictions, they don't have to go through a 21-day program, do they?
No, because they are not physically addicted to those anymore. However, Tim, they still have to unlearn the addictive tendencies, you know? Because normally someone that's an alcohol addiction or drug addiction and things like that are addictive personalities. If you take one addiction away from them, they try to replace it with another addiction, okay? So that's the sort of things that'll have to be trained out of them. There won't be a 12-step program. There'll probably be a 100-step program of things you need to get rid of to get rid of your addictive personality, you know? So, because you can just trade one addiction for another, okay? All right, let's keep going. All right, so this is the first mansion world, okay? I stuck this slide in because I want us to understand, since we're starting out from scratch on the first mansion world, what we're coming up against here, okay? From the time of leaving the material worlds, you're constituted a first stage spirit on Salvington. You will undergo just 570 separate and ascending Morontia changes, 8 of which occur in the system, 71 in the constellation, and 491 during their sojourn on the spheres of Salvington. Okay? Why I wanted to bring this up is this. Mansion World 1, Mansion World 2, 3, 4, all the way through 7. Okay? When you are resurrected, see this little resurrection thing here? When you are resurrected on Mansion World number 1, that's your first resurrection. Alright? When you're resurrected on Mansion World number 2, that's your second resurrection. Right? And 3, third resurrection, and so on to the 7th. On the 7th resurrection, that's your final resurrection. Okay? You are no longer resurrected. You are translated from one type of Morontia spirit to another, and that is what these 570 separate ascending Morontia changes are. You follow me?
So what do you mean by resurrected?
During these resurrections, you go unconscious, okay, on all 7 of them, all right? And you're reassembled just like you were on the first one on each and every one of them.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So it's not death.
So it's not death, but it's just moving your adjuster and your soul to a new body each time.
So it's as if you fall asleep, Roger, and you wake up in a resurrection chamber, and you have an angel there to greet you.
That's right, on 7 times, right?
I never knew that.
Yes, but after the 7th resurrection, You no longer go unconscious and are resurrected in a new body. Your new body after the seventh time is tuned for the remainder. Okay? You follow me?
Tweaked.
Tweaked. So you keep the same body after that seventh resurrection. You maintain that same body through the 490 or the 570 changes. Actually, it'd be 463 changes.
So there's no changes on the body. 463. You have to keep the same body.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I follow you.
That's why they talk about this, the mansion worlds being resurrections, and the Morontia changes as translations. Really. You follow me? That make sense to everybody?
Yeah, yeah.
Any questions about that before I get off this slide?
What do the resurrection halls look like when you awaken? Is it just like a casket, or is there a description or a picture you can show me?
Yeah, we're going to see a picture of it tonight.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go on to the next slide here. Okay. This is what happens with language. Everybody wonders, how am I going to talk to these people, right? All right. It says, you will not acquire new languages automatically. You will learn a language over there much as you do down here. These brilliant beings will be your language and teachers. The first study on the mansion world will be the tongue of Satania. That's our local system, right? And then the language of Nebadon. So that's two languages we have to learn, right? Satania and Nebadon. Satania is our local system, right? And the language of Nebadon is our local universe. Okay. And while you are mastering these new tongues, the Morontia companions will be your efficient interpreters and patient translators. You will never encounter a visitor on any of these worlds that someone of the Morontia companions will be able to officiate as an interpreter. Okay? So regardless of where you go, there will always be a Morontia companion to interpret it for you. Right? So these two languages you start to learn on Mansion World number 1, Satania and Nebadon. Right? Then when you get to about the 5th mansion world, I believe it is, you start to learn the tongue of Yaversa, which is the super universe.
Just a small question here, Roger. What if you're a slow learner? You won't have that problem anymore?
No such thing on the mansion worlds, because you'll have a perfect mind there. And you'll be able to retain things at a level that is not even comprehensible to us here.
Okay, thank you.
All right? Okay. Who's up to read? Huh?
I read the first one, I think.
Okay, Millie, would you take the next one?
Turn your mic on.
Turn your mic on, Millie.
If Diane just read, the next one's Tim, and then me.
No, the next one's you and then Tim.
Okay. The very center of all activities on the first mansion world is the Resurrection Hall, the enormous temple of personality assembly. This gigantic structure consists of the central rendezvous of the seraphic destiny guardians, the thought adjusters, and the archangels of the resurrection. The life carriers also function with these celestial beings in the resurrection of the dead.
Okay, so this is a picture of a resurrection chamber. Okay, and here we have the ascender, the thought adjuster, right, and the archangel and the seraphim, right? Also involved is the life carriers. But basically, the thought adjuster brings your mind patterns, the archangel brings your soul and your mind or personality patterns, okay? And the seraphim is in charge, the seraphim brings your personality patterns and your mind patterns, or your soul, and the archangel is there with your transcript to assure that you are who you are supposed to be. It's put in this Morontia body. Okay? And it says, the very center of all activities in the first menstrual is the resurrection harm, the enormous temporal personality assembly. Okay? This gigantic structure of the central rendezvous of seraphic destiny guardians, the thought adjustment, the archangels of the resurrection. The life carriers also function with the celestial beings in the resurrection of the dead. Okay, so that is a resurrection chamber. And we're going to discuss many things about the types of resurrection here before we get done, if we can get to it tonight. Okay, Tim, would you take the next one?
The mortal mind transcripts and the active creature memory patterns, as transformed from the material levels to the spiritual, are the individual possession of the detached thought adjusters. These spiritized factors of mind, memory, and creature personality are forever a part of such adjusters. The creature mind matrix and the passive potentials of identity are present in the Morancha soul and trusted to the keeping of the seraph and destiny guardians. And it is the reuniting of the Morancha soul trust of the seraphim and the spirit mind trust of the adjuster that reassembles creature personality and constitute resurrection of a sleeping survival.
Okay, important point here. The mind transcripts, the mortal mind transcripts, and your active creature memory patterns are not yours. You see that?
Huh.
They are part of the thought adjuster. So, your mind, your creature memory patterns are the possessions of the adjuster, and this is the fact even if you do not survive. Do you see that? These are the things that the adjuster retains regardless of whether you're resurrected or not. Okay?
So, hey Roger, what does the word mind matrix mean? I don't understand that.
That's the organization of all your potential things that could happen to you in the future. So the memories are part of the adjuster, but the potential of things to happen to you from the gathering of these mind memories and things like that are considered the mind matrix. These are the part of what we consider like a brain. Okay? And those are part of your soul. Those are not part of the adjuster.
So the mind matrix is just another way of saying the brain?
Yeah, and I would say the brain or the organization of all the memories into an active part of something of identity, more than
Oh,
anything.
through your experience in the human
Your
life in the
experience
flesh.
in the human life in the flesh.
And then what
Even though the adjuster retains the memories, the experience and everything else relating to your soul is part of this possession that the guardian, seraphic guardian of destiny takes back to the
Do you know
nation.
what the word matrix means?
The mind matrix in this case basically means the organization of all those memories, patterns, and things and potentials that gives you an identity, basically.
Basically your experiences.
Your
Okay.
experiences.
And then what exactly did you say mortal mind transcripts means?
The mortal mind transcripts are part of the adjuster. In other words, every memory you ever had is actually a possession of the thought adjuster. When you understand that the adjuster has all your memory patterns, and you have the potentials of your identity in your soul, you understand the importance of fusing with that adjuster. In other words, God the Father is the fragment of the adjuster. The personality part of that, of your being, is in your soul, which is a gift from God the Father. But it's not part of the adjuster. It's only when these two come together, the mind matrix and the memory transcripts, when they come together permanently and fuse, does the adjuster do what? The adjuster gains personality, you gain everlasting life and become a part of God the Father. Okay? You become
thank
a
you.
cosmic citizen at that point. Okay? And it's the reuniting of these two that becomes what they call the Morancha Soul Trust. Okay, you're reassembled in the resurrection of the sleeping survivor. So these two parts, or really three parts in essence, come together to create the new being of what? The Morancha soul, or the Morancha person. Okay.
So when they say Morancha Soul Trust, you're just translating into that as a person, you, a
Yeah,
new being.
yeah, a new being, a new being. And that's why by around the 5th or 2nd mansion world, you have to fuse with that adjuster, because if you do not fuse with that adjuster, your adjuster retains no personality unless God instills personality in him, and you do not retain eternal life or identity because you have no adjuster. So the essence of your pathway to God is the fusion process. And at that fusion process, that's when they say you become a real cosmic citizen, because you become a part of the cosmos at that fusion, when you go to put those things together. Okay? Does that make sense?
Question.
Yeah.
Tim mentioned when you talked about the adjuster having all of our memory,
Right.
Tim mentioned brain. The brain and the memory are not the same thing, are
They
they?
are not.
No.
The brain is a physical organism. All it does is it stores electrical impulses, okay? But the memory, the memory makes those electrical impulses, but that memory is a non-physical entity, okay? So
Okay.
all these impulses that are going around in your brain, the synapses and all that thing, that's a physical thing. That's part of the infinite spirit and the Isle of Paradise that makes that happen. Okay, that's the infinite spirit's part of bringing you into being. But those memories and that mind matrix is above the physical. It's not part of your physical being. When you die, that mind transcripts and the mind matrix is removed. The mind matrix goes with the seraphim, and the memory patterns and the transcripts goes with the thought adjuster. However, your not the guardian seraphim, but the archangel also retains a copy of every memory and transcript that's ever happened to you. So it's
Okay. Thank you for that.
it's the backup
The
system.
backup file.
That's right.
Roger, I was sort of thinking about, we've got the cloud. If my computer died, it would be like the brain, but the cloud has the information. It's in the cloud.
That's right.
The iCloud, Rodney?
Yeah. You could call it the universe cloud. Let me get down.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could call it the universe
that's
cloud.
interesting.
Yeah, it really is. Oh me. Listen, it's almost 9 o'clock. I wonder if we could. I hate to break in the middle of this. Let me look and see what we got here. I think we need. Yeah, there is so much to cover here. I think we need to break there and come back from
Okay.
there next time.
That's good.
Sounds good.
Okay, and y'all remember where we are in case I mess up and try to start us out in a different place. This stuff is just so interesting. I hate to miss anything of it.
Yeah,
We could go start next week on the first mansion world.
Yeah, we can.
We've only done three paragraphs.
Yeah, that'd be fine. All right, let's have a short prayer and we'll quit for today. Tim, why don't you give us a prayer tonight? You feel like praying tonight?
Well, let's see. Would it be okay if I,
Pass? That's fine. Rodney,
Yeah.
would you like to close us in prayer tonight?
sure. Hold on just a second. My computer's not log out. Heavenly Father, we are so thankful that we had the opportunity to come together tonight to study this great paper on the seven mansion worlds. And we hope that we have the wisdom to be able to share this information with others. And Father, we pray for our elected officials and judges that they make the right decisions during these very troubled times. And in all things, Father, your will be done. Amen.
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 Thank you for joining us at home. Please come see us again. You can stop the video.